Hey friends. So I wanted to do a fast video on how to foster a positive relationship with negative emotion. And the reason that I think that's such a asset, such a good tool to have, is even if, let's say, things are truly random, and so 33% of the time in your life, a third of the time, you're going to have a positive reaction, influence to 33, you're going to have a negative one too, and 33, you're going to have a neutral one too. So a third of the time, you're going to be subjected to something that you don't like. There's a negative interaction there. And so having a strategy for those times that helps you keep you in a higher consciousness state, in a higher state of inner peace, it would be a good asset, good tool, good trick to have. So I want to define negative emotion or negative experience real quick, and I'm going to do it by defining positive first and then negative. So positive emotion is anything that inspires gratitude. It's anything that inspires a thankful, grateful stance. And an example might be if your loved one comes up and gives you a hug. You're happy about that. That's a positive experience because you're grateful it's happening, and you'd like to kind of indulge in that moment, if you will. Versus a negative experience is something that inspires anti-gratitude or almost like contempt for that experience. The reason I prefer to use anti-gratitude is because contempt is a good descriptor, but it's not really anti-gratitude. Anti-gratitude is like almost a hatred or a lack of desire for something to have occurred, and that really kind of is one of the main fundamental seeds that disrupt inner peace. It's because everything that's occurring around you, you're not accepting, you're kind of against it, and because you're anti-grateful for it, you're spiteful for it, you don't want it, and because it exists, that's going to take you down from this higher consciousness, this higher state, and so 33% of the time, that's probably going to happen to you. Hopefully less, but we can make it 0% of the time if we have a good strategy for handling when it does arise. So the biggest thing I think that should be employed when you're interacting with anything that inspires negative emotion is to separate the concept of maliciousness from that interaction. And so I'll give you an example. So let's say that you and I are at a party, and I come up and in my blundering, unaware, lower consciousness state, just hit you in the face. Now, obviously, it's going to be pretty hard to find the positive in that interaction. It was unsolicited. You didn't know me. I just decided, like, oh, fuck that guy, and I went up and hit you in the face. That's not good. And it's really easy to lose yourself in the malicious or the seemingly malicious intent there and not adopt the inner peace, higher, accepting viewpoint, which is, maybe he was having, and I'm not saying this excuses the punching of the face, but by perceiving it this way, you change your relationship with that negative experience in a way that removes a lot of the maliciousness and the spite and the negativity and all of these things that inspire an anti-grateful stance in you. You can remove that from your experience by perceiving the experience differently without excusing the actions of the other person, right? Because this is an internal kind of process. The external one already happened. And so now you get a choice as to how you try to mold your internal perception and reaction to that negative thing that occurred. You do so by removing the maliciousness from it. And so logically, you can do that by saying, that guy that hit me, he's just in a lower consciousness state. He's less aware. He's failing in his pursuit of happiness, and this is how he took it out. Now, is that fair? No. But it does change your perception away from an attack on your self-worth to a way that he interprets failure himself, or the way that I interpret failure in this example. And the reason that I think that's a really good place to start with this specific example is because, everybody that or I would say likely almost every single person is in pursuit of happiness and inner peace, and to varying degrees of success, right? So if you had a bell curve, people on the extreme of success end and the extreme failure end, everybody reacts and copes with their success and failure in trying to forge happiness, trying to find happiness differently. And if you're at an especially low state of awareness or low state of consciousness, you're probably experiencing your failure to sculpt out a happy life, a peaceful life, pretty intensely if you're at that lower end of the bell curve, that low state. And so that's pretty close to what I would consider a fact. I mean, people don't hit each other in the face when they're feeling fulfilled, when they're feeling peaceful, when they're feeling happy with the current state of their life, outside of maybe sparring. But it's really also easy to take the malicious intent out of sparring because it's a sport, it's sparring. You know, a lot of the time people that spar against one another really like each other. And that just goes to show you how effective that removing the maliciousness from an action can be. And you can do so even against the ignorance of somebody who inspired a negative interaction or a negative emotion in you, by clarifying to you via your perspective their lack of understanding, and understanding yourself that their action was likely fueled by a bad strategy or a bad coping mechanism to their failure to find inner peace and happiness. So it's not an attack on your self-worth. And that's 9 times out of 10, almost 10 times out of 10 maybe, what people are really trying to guard against is, you know, an attack on their self-worth. And your self-worth, a lot of the time, and this is why it's super easy to perceive maliciousness and have a bad relationship with negative emotion when you're in a lower state, and I know that was quite a sentence, is because when you're in that lower state, it's easy to use that state as the mirror in which you gauge why other people did what they did. So let's say you're in a lower state and you yourself aren't sure of your own self-worth, or maybe you're 85% sure of your own self-worth, or, you know, throw whatever number in there that you want, and somebody comes up and they hit you in the face. Well, when you're unsure of it, you're like, all right, well, it's because they don't like me, and they don't like me probably because of these reasons. And deep down, those reasons are probably reasons that you're unsure if you like in yourself, like maybe that you haven't integrated, you haven't accepted, or you haven't put in the time to change. And so their attack on you now translates, because it's malicious, right, to your attack on you. And that's what people are really trying to defend against, is that kind of, I don't want to say existential, but that internal battle, that internal struggle to love yourself and to have a stance that's at complete inner peace, right? And so the whole thing of this video is how to stay in that inner peace even when negative things occur to you, around you, even on the inside. So first thing, separate maliciousness from whatever the thing is, because it's almost definitely got nothing to do with maliciousness. And if it does have something to do with maliciousness, that's still a byproduct of their failure or their bad strategy to find inner peace and happiness themselves. It's an important thing to realize. And so although you can't control that thing occurring, whatever that negative thing is, you can control to varying degrees of success. But when you practice this, you can control your reaction to it, and you can control your perception of it by taking a higher stance, a more broad perspective on what's going on. And that's an extremely valuable tool to foster and have. So I hope you guys liked this. I hope you guys have some success in implementing this in any negative experience that's happening in your life right now, which I hope that you get resolved quickly and that you find positivity in. So have a great day. Peace.